Hex Factor by Jason V. Brock.
That girl ain't stealing my thunder no more. That's why I hired you, Mr. Blackwood.
Rupert Blackwood winced on hearing this. He leaned forward over the conference table, too aware of the clock ticking on the far wall of the small office. The old hag speaking across the desk leered at him from her disastrously large left eye, wiping tears from her cheek where the unblinking orb continually watered. Her face was stern and gaunt, sprouting hairs in places usually reserved for the male of the species. Her mouth smacked when she spoke, as though she were thirsty.
Hungry for Life by Alan Lawson. The hunger was almost upon me, and it was time to feed while I still had control over my own actions. I dressed accordingly, in clothes that revealed my figure without being too common. Even after hundreds of years, I was still very aware of my mother's words on dressing appropriately for any social occasion. I was always relieved that she never learned of what I became after clawing my way out of the cold earth, and the social circles that I had become accustomed to.
Dancing with the Scars by Matt Betts. Her partner was no great shakes. He was a friend of a friend that she just met, but he would do. He was a warmish body, at least. They took their places on the dance floor at the appointed time. Segura watched her partner wipe his hands on his pants. "Nervous?" she asked. Lindo took out a handkerchief and wiped his pale forehead with it. "No. Why? Do I look it?" Segura laughed, revealing her pointed teeth. "You're fine. You've just been a bit quiet, that's all." She smoothed out his lapel. They fell into a klutzy rhythm as the band swung into an up-tempo number. She tried to get him to do more than sway stiff-legged in circles, with no luck.
The Skin Changer's Enemy, A Story of the Crow Witch, by Mike Phillips. Wildflowers bloomed under a sky of purest blue, seeming to come to life by the artist's hand. Muttering as she painted the bright colors, working a spell with each stroke of the brush, the mural was finally completed. The artist stood back to inspect her work, to assess if what she had done was good. It was. She smiled. In times that had come and gone with the painting of the mural, she had achieved moments of perfection, and in that perfection the painting could be used to her ends.
Black Fishnet. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you, you probably won't believe. The closest anyone else has ever come to believing it was to justify it as an out-of-body experience, or whatever else they tell people who've been pulled back from the brink of death. They tell them anything that sounds vaguely scientific, because that way they never have to wonder themselves if there is anything bigger than this, anything bigger than us. Science, technology, medicine. In the end, it is just another faith-dependent explanation for things we can't understand. But if you can't believe me, don't worry. All I ask is that you listen, because maybe, just maybe, there's a less abstract meaning to this story. Setting the Record Straight. Transcribed by Andrew M. Boylan on behalf of Miss X. Let it begin, though I still don't understand myself why I wish to set the record straight. Perhaps as I dictate to you, and you make your notes and recordings, it shall become apparent to me. Perhaps, Andrew, when you draft this record of events and I read it, perhaps then it shall make some sense to me. My name, well, it is hardly of any use that I tell you my given name. No one knows that. The records of events were changed so much when Jonathan Harker had Bram Stoker transcribe the notes into the melodrama called Dracula.
The Rules by Kevin Joseph. We wanted the transfer to be so much more sporting than when you wiped out the Neanderthals. Call it overconfidence if you like, but we wanted to give you a fighting chance. That's where the idea of the negotiations came in. One representative from you and one from us. They would meet one day a year, every year, with one rule each. No matter how outlandish the rule was, both races agreed to adhere to it. It was our idea, so we chose first. By my calculations, we had complete control until year 4. Year 1. Our rule. We live forever, you do not. Your rule. If you can live forever, then you cannot breed.
The Crowning of Nature by A.L. Day. In the hour before morning, the mist hangs thick over the Carn. This is where the people live in strong little houses, hewn from rain-lashed granite. The mist retreats as the sun rises, chased down the steep inclines and across the flats, where, at the edge of the swamp, it promises to remain until after dark. It is the world acting in accordance with the base laws, so the alchemist says. The mist, water on the air, is displaced by the fire from the sun. He is a very wise man, they all agree.
Back to the Ruins by Glyn Barras. The whisper of footsteps across the crisp grass informed him that he was no longer alone. It was a good job too. He had waited for his friend for all of 20 minutes. Justin Middleton was a man of extreme punctuality. His friend was not. The other man was 40 feet away, quickly growing nearer. Justin had exceptional hearing. He was seated on a bench near the centre of Albert Park. The bench was situated in the southern edge of a concrete-covered circle. Justin sat facing the ornate stone fountain at the circle's centre. It had been switched off for the night. Its basin held water, though. He could hear its sluggish movement as a frog waded around on the hunt for sustenance.
So there I was, sucking on a punker's neck, when all of a sudden comes a man sheathed in garlic, sporting a silver cross. I had ducked into this club with the rest of the throngs. The building was jet black except with some graffiti jags of luminescent yellow and orange paint giving away the location and the name. It was a young crowd, all circling 20 years old, except for me. I'm a few 100 years old.
Came the sinister laugh, ringing out along the empty corridors like an irritating sound effect on a ghost train. Bob Stokes slammed down his book and cocked his head to the side. This was the second time he had heard the noise. Initially he had assumed he was imagining things, but now he was sure there was someone there. "I'll bet it's one of those bloody tramps again," he said to himself angrily.
My Pretty Pony by Alan Lowen. It was a given that when humanity made breakthroughs in genetic engineering and artificial wombs that our civilization would end in the insidious hell of a bioengineered microbe. I sometimes wonder in the hour of the rat, those early morning hours when my thoughts come out and gnaw on me, if we might have been better off.
The Gypsy Curse, written and read by Teresa Ford. The forest seemed to whisper as the cool wind blew through the trees, rustling the leaves. It was a late autumn evening, and it looked like it was going to be a harsh winter if the weather so far was anything to go by. The gentle calm of the place was suddenly broken by the sound of galloping horses' hooves on the hard earth as a rider came into view through the dark cover of the trees. It was a man, sitting strong and tall on a large black stallion.